Hey, welcome to Dripping Stone Podcast, a podcast where two friends raise a glass and have a conversation. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
It's all right. How are you?
Man, I am doing well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
You said that like, are you sure?
Well, middle of the week. You never know.
That you're correct. Yes, I did have this past Monday off. It was Martin Luther King Day, so we got it off.
Right. As educators.
As educators, we got that day off.
Well worthy.
So well rested.
Good.
Sort of.
Well, you needed it after your weekend.
I did.
Deserves a break and a drink.
Well, in that case,
What are we drinking?
good question.
There's a canister.
There is a canister in front of us. I've been in a scotchy mood, honestly, since like Christmas. Like You're
still in it.
I'm still in it. Yeah. I mean,
Cool.
I know that we talked about that during a Christmas episode, and I'm still there, and I'm enjoying it. And so I want to explore it a little bit further. This is a bottle that I've been eyeing for a little while, and this is the Oban 14.
Oban.
Yeah, I've never had this. I saw this at a big box store.
Yep.
And they happened to have a couple bottles, and it was like $20 less than I've seen it in stores. So I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Bringing you home.
Yep. This is in the same family as Lagavulin in terms of the company that kind of distills all of it. It's one big distiller.
No kidding.
Yeah, so Diageo owns it.
Sure.
That's a really big name, obviously, in spirits in general. But then this Classic Malts of Scotland, I think, is a conglomerate of like multiple distilleries. Because if you look on the back of Oban and the new versions of Lagavulin, like kind of list a couple of their scotches. And Glenkinny, which is their Lowland, the Dalwhinnie, which is their Highland, the Cragganmore, which is the Speyside, the Talisker, which is the Skye, the Lagavulin, the Islay, and then the Oban, which is the West Highland Scotch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So one brand that covers
Right.
all of those different Scotch areas.
Makers. Yeah, yeah. So like
That's pretty cool.
if you go like, and I discovered this actually through the Lagavulin website because I went on there to do a little bit of research for that episode, the Nick Offerman episode. And if you just go to the Lagavulin website, they actually have like kind of across the top of like all these other scotches. And I was like, what's going on here? And it's because it's part of a larger, I think, Scotch company, I guess, under the big umbrella of Diageo.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I looked it up real quick, Kyle, because you said Oban. Oh, how did you say it?
Oban.
Oban. I said Oban.
Right.
And we looked it up,
Yeah.
and it's Oban.
Oban.
Oban. Yeah,
Yeah, just more subtle.
correct. So the Oban distillery is in the West Highland region of Scotland. You know where that is?
Yep.
Good.
Yep. It's up in the west.
It's up in the west, and it's the
Of
Highlands.
Scotland.
Yeah, it's the mountainous region.
Makes sense.
North of Islay.
Okay. Oban.
Oban. I haven't even opened this to make sure that bottle is in here, Kyle. So when I open this canister, who knows what's in it? I know there's a bottle in this canister.
Sounds like it.
Look
But
at
who?
Oh God, that was almost really
close.
bad. Wow.
Woo.
Anyway, so what I did when I bought this, normally I check canisters just to make sure, but I was like,
Same.
I was confident, and I just kind of like opened it and looked at the top.
Pull it out. It's just a Wild Turkey 101.
I mean, I enjoy that, but I also paid
It'll be great, but yeah, you overpaid a bit.
overpaid a bit. Yeah. Anyway, okay, yeah, it is the Oban 14.
Sexy.
Yeah, it is. There's a whole novel on this bottle. Kyle.
Look at that.
You see that?
Yeah, story time.
Crazy. Settle in, my friend. Here we go. Or I'm going to read a little canister words because honestly, like, there's a lot of damn bottle words here. The distillery is at the heart of Oban, gateway to the Isles. In effect, the town grew up around the distillery, founded by John and Hugh Stevenson in 1794. Wow.
Good year.
Oban's attractive West Highland character reflects its location, revealing aspects of both the Highland and Island styles. Elegant and glowing, it marries the sea-air character of the Island malts to the soft, richly fruity style of the Highlands, creating its own rich-tasting West Highland malt. The stills here are among the smallest in Scotland. The cramped nature of the site places severe limits on production, which in turn means that demand for Oban's richly appreciated malt is always likely to exceed supply. Few malts were ever made in the Western Highlands, and only two now remain. Oban, like its home, remains their capital. Oban is the unforgettable West Highland destination on a journey around Scotland's 6 malt whiskey making regions.
Fantastic.
I know. A little tiny bit more. Ready? Along the shores of Lorne lies a record of man for more ancient than that of any city in the land. The first settlers arrived on the mainland in 5000 BC and sheltered in the natural caves of the land then known as NOB. The The distillery cave was one such shelter hidden in the crag, a barren cliffs, which are dramatically above the Oban distillery.
Aw,
I know.
romantic.
Have you ever had this?
I have had it once.
Okay. Do you remember it?
Nope.
I've never had it. Why I'm excited is a little bit of what I read on the canister words.
Right.
And it's that marriage between what we think of as Highland malt Scotch,
Totally.
and then Island
Islay,
Scotch.
yeah.
So I'm super excited for
Yeah,
this.
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. One time I had it was probably about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Just had a pour at a bar. Remember really liking it.
Yeah.
But that's all I got. Right off the bat.
Yeah. That is a dark.
It is dark.
That
for
is a
Scotch,
dark
man.
Scotch. It really is a dark Scotch.
Cool.
I don't know. Do you think it's just a no? I was gonna
That
say is
looks
it the
bourbony.
label? It does look bourbony. I was gonna say maybe it's the label because the label is really light, but no, that is
No, I don't think so.
dark. All right, well, let's get into it.
Okay.
You ready?
Oh, yeah. Anticipation.
Oh, that was nice.
Solid pop.
that was a good one.
That
Yeah,
one was
that
snug.
was a good one. Hey, I want to point out real cork.
Real cork.
You know what? If you look at the top for the Oban bottle, though, the cork is very similar to the Lagavulin cork. It's like a slightly lighter wood grain on the top, but it's pretty much the same thing. And honestly, the bottles are kind of similar too between the Oban and the Lagavulin. I'm gonna pour it into a glass. What do you think?
Ooh, good idea.
Just go Irish all of a sudden.
Ooh. Fancy that.
Kyle, I need an extra big pour today.
Damn it. Need a cigarette. Just those deep glugs from a new bottle, man.
Like you only get that with a new bottle.
Can't beat that shit. See? Just the second pour.
The second
Not
pour,
as sexy.
yeah. All right. You know, in the glass, man, it is dark. You're right. I would say bourbon dark.
Yeah.
That is
Lighter bourbon.
That is incredible.
But it's got some color.
And
which
the
is
reason
phenomenal.
why, yeah, I think of what?
Do you think they add color?
Ooh,
Because they could just add the color.
that's a good point. I don't know. They don't have to tell us.
They don't.
That's a really good point because I think of like the Peat Monster is a super light Scotch. You
Right.
know, so is the Lagavulin's light too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean,
they
They
might.
might add a little caramel.
We could probably look it up. I'm not going to. What you got on the nose?
Scotchy, scotch.
Ron?
Butterscotch.
I get like fruit, like
Oh.
cherries, maybe a little bit of plum, but like this beautiful, beautiful, rich, malty note.
Yeah. Weedy.
You know, like you open a fresh thing of like, I don't know, oatmeal. Like it kind of has that like
Oaty.
oaty, grainy, like
Yeah. Definitely get like oats.
I can't get away from fruit.
I can't get off just butterscotch.
I definitely see the butterscotch. Like really nice, even keel vanilla.
Yeah. And just like deep, buttery, creamy.
Oh, buttery. That's good. I didn't even think of that. It's like buttered fruit.
Well, yeah, kind of like in a way of like, you know, like a pie.
Like a pie, exactly.
A cobbler.
I get like a little bit of like brine or like slight salt or like a brightness.
Sure.
Like I'm saying salt just because like obviously I now know where it's from and a little bit of that. Maybe I'm just conjuring that. But there's like a brightness that's.
Well, it's like salted butter.
It really is, yeah.
It almost like leans Irish too.
There's a little bit of shortbread cookie.
That doughy,
Yeah.
kind of sweet dough, sweet bread.
Which honestly, I mean, you know, these scotches aren't super far from Ireland, so it does, you know, make some sense out of there, I guess.
Sure.
I don't think that's how distilleries work, but
That makes sense.
I mean, you know,
Geographically.
geographically,
Geographically.
there it is.
Not that far apart.
Sure. I mean, that's like saying, you know, Wild Turkey and Jim Beam are not that far apart because they're not.
That's why they taste so similar.
They both taste like bourbon.
Tastes like bourbon.
Weird. Yeah. All right, I'm going in.
Yeah.
Ooh. A little bit of bite there.
I get it. There is a little bit of bite, but it's not a proof bite.
No.
It's like a spice bite.
I'm not going to say peppery, but there's like a really warming
Close.
spice note on the side, almost like clove.
Right. Yeah. It leans pepper, but then like it backs off before going to like
Exactly.
full, like, green pepper or
Yeah.
anything.
I don't get like cracked black pepper. I get like the warm feeling of cracked black pepper, but not the taste, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Definitely got some spice, some sporty spice on it. Maybe it's just baby spice.
The liquid to me is thick.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just like where my palate is right now, but it's a thicker,
Yeah.
oilier scotch for sure.
Definitely has like a clingy, like it grabs hold of your palate.
Yeah. I'm still getting on the back of my throat, like kind of the same that I get with some rye, of like a little bit of numbness, but like way back in my throat.
I like the wood bitter on the end. It's not overwhelming, and it's not like a sharp bitter. It's just kind of a dull, kind of rounded bitter.
Yep.
But it's not too pronounced.
Yep.
So it's like pretty nice.
Here's the thing though, like what you just said, I'm gonna knock it for a little bit because it's almost too rounded, too
balanced.
I was maybe balanced, maybe just I was gonna say friendly, but I don't think that's necessarily right. I like rounded. To me, it's like there's nothing that's like boom other than that slight spice note.
Sure.
You know what it is? It's warm. It's very like rich. It's very warm, but not in a sweet way. In like a sit by the fire comforting way. Does that make sense?
It does, but like it is right off the bat. It's pretty sweet, like right on the palate.
Okay.
And then I think that spice comes through with that little bit of a dull bitter. The whole ride, the whole experience, it's balanced and there's no peaks in it, but I feel like it's kind of just like a nice little, hey.
What was that?
Hey. It's nice.
Oh, it's
It's not
definitely
challenging.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, like I think that might be where you're going is like it's not overly complex, but like the journey that it takes you on is just a pleasant
and that's
Sunday ride kind of thing.
I want to be clear, like I'm not saying it's not good. I think this is delicious. I wish there was a little bit more peaks and valleys, and I wish there was a bit of a roller coaster.
Yep.
And I think you're right. Like there's that nice, like even keel, like rounded journey it takes you on.
Is this an 80 proof?
This is 86.
86.
Yep. Which to me, I would, if I didn't know, I would put it a little bit higher. I put it like maybe low to mid 90s because I'm getting a really beautiful warming hug going on.
I don't disagree, but like I can tell that it's from spice, not from proof.
Right.
I wish like, you know, if it were like a 95 peaking up to 100 proof,
Sure.
I think that solves every problem that you have with it.
Yeah.
Not that you have a problem.
But I
But I just think that would give the
I agree.
peaks and valleys
I
because
agree.
that's going to accentuate all these flavors.
Yep.
I would really like to try that.
Yeah, me too.
You know.
But you know what? Now that you say that, in research that I've done lately, just because I've gotten more into Scotch, it's actually really rare for a distiller, a Scotch distiller, to bottle at cask strength or barrel strength.
Sure.
Like the Highland Park is kind of an anomaly.
Right.
At least in terms of wide distribution here. Now that may be different in Scotland. I mean, very similar to like, most distillers here in America in terms of bourbon are, you can find a cask strength, you can find a barrel proof or whatever.
Right.
But they're a little more rare in terms of distribution elsewhere. So maybe that's the case.
Right. I would imagine it's kind of like, here, it's not like any of the big boys are going to have any problem selling off that stuff.
Right.
So you don't need to send it overseas.
Exactly.
You're not having any trouble. You're selling it as fast as you can make it here.
Exactly.
You don't need to send it out.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's probably the same thing over there.
It might
you
be.
might could find a barrel proof, barrel strength, whatever over there. They don't need to send it over here because they get rid of it over there.
Remember, we did the Lefroy cask strength, which I have never seen ever again.
You're right.
I'm kicking myself because I had a chance to get the Lefroy 16 year in Colorado, and I passed it up. It was a little more than I thought I wanted to pay, and then I looked it up like after the fact, and it was like $10 cheaper than MSRP. So I should have bought.
What was the proof on that?
I don't know the proof on that.
Oh.
But I'm just bringing it up because of like that's a super rare bottle,
Sure.
at least in terms of what I've seen too.
Right.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I've never seen that here in Florida anyway.
I'm really impressed with how you can taste the different areas and how this is like a
No
blending of the
joke.
two. That's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
I would be really interested to see what this compares with Connemara.
Ooh.
I would think because
Yeah.
you're getting just that subtle hint of smoke, a little bit of peat, which goes away really fast.
Yeah.
It just doesn't hold up.
It's like it.
That first
like
sip
a
was beautiful.
Super whiff of peat.
Yeah, that first sip was beautiful because it came through, just poked its head through there. But now it's all sweet.
Yeah.
And primarily.
I would say this is, in terms of like that peaty nature, is a regular 12-year Bunnahabhain. That slight little like whiff of peat, but I wouldn't say it's a peated Scotch by any means.
See, I'd go. I think this probably has a little bit more.
Okay.
'Cause I don't really ever get much on the Bunnahabhain. Bunnahabhain is just straight lovely flavor the whole time. Like there's no peat.
Yeah.
There's nothing ever arguing with it.
Maybe that's a good point. Like I actually like now that I'm kind of equating the Bunnahabhain a little bit too. What I love about the Bunnahabhain is its warm, rounded, deep fruit and like sweet and dessert. And I'm absolutely getting some of that in here. And maybe like I'm kind of attributing that as a negative almost because I want maybe a little bit more briny. I want a little bit more.
Right.
But I guess if, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess if I want that, I'm going to go Lafroig. Or I'm going to go Lagavulin, if that's what I want.
If you're looking for that, you go all the way.
So the beautiful aspect of this is the melding between the two. You get the beautiful, rich, malty Highland, and then you get that little bit of whiff of sea and peat and spicy.
Like if you were just to hand this to me, not tell me what it was, I would almost think it was a blend.
Yeah.
That it was you took a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit of a Highland, a little bit of a Isla, kind of mix them together.
Totally.
I'd be like, oh yeah, no, totally what you did.
Yeah. No, it's
still great.
It's
it's just
it's really damn
I think
good.
it's just like where we're at. Like I find myself thinking the same thing all the time about stuff where it's like, no, this is good. It's not great though. It's not like wowing me. It's not blowing me away.
Yeah.
But it's still really good.
I'll say this, just based on, and I'm going to sit with this for a little while, and we always do that. Like, we open a bottle brand new, sit with it a little while, see how it goes. Based on first impressions, I'm super glad I bought this because I've been, like I said, eyeing it for a while. This might be my only bottle.
Right.
Because, like you said, it's good, but I don't know if I'm going to gravitate towards that.
Sure.
For right now, anyway.
Yeah. No, I think that's just kind of like where we're at. It's like you get a bottle, you experience that bottle. Yeah. Awesome. You've done it.
Yep.
It's the bottles that really kind of stick out that you're like, I'm definitely going to get another one of those. Like,
especially.
And you know it when you have it.
Oh, yeah.
You're
like, oh,
that's great.
That.
When I find more of that, I will immediately buy that.
I mean, that's like the first sip of the Bunnahabhain I had, I was like, I need more.
Yeah.
Like, this is a bottle that I always want on my shelf.
Yep.
All right, Colton, now that we've got a great pour.
Yeah.
What are you going to talk about?
Well, I had the idea to have a conversation about something that you just kind of had a weekend about. You just went to a, what was it called?
Officially, it's a Scottish Highland Games.
The Scottish Highland Games.
Yeah.
And obviously, like that's something that piques your interest because it kind of reaches back into your ancestry.
Yep.
I just thought it'd be a cool conversation just in general, just to kind of like bring up ancestry.
Yeah.
Just kind of like lineage, where you come from.
Sure.
But yeah, I just thought it'd be an interesting conversation to have, kind of, what your knowledge is of your ancestry and just kind of the journey that you've been on.
I'm thinking about like reasons why someone would care about their lineage, their history, their ancestry. I'm gonna borrow some words from another Johnston. His name's Jamesy. He's a drummer in a pretty popular Scottish band. And he said, we've got to know where we come from. You can't just run about being a faceless being. And that kind of like spoke to me a little bit of like, yes, I mean, it is totally possible for anyone to exist without knowing any sort of their history.
Right.
I mean, and people do this all the time. I'm thinking like, not necessarily if we don't know, but if we don't express interest in who we are and who our family was and what these people did, I almost like question like, do you even know yourself?
Sure.
Because I think so much of knowing oneself also is knowing some of the history that kind of like culminated in you, if that makes sense.
I mean, I definitely like, would agree with that to an extent. But at the same time, like, it's not like you're essentially bound to it.
Correct.
Correct. Like, sure, it is important. I think it is interesting myself. Knowing where you're coming from, what's your heritage, what's your ancestry, just how did you get to be here?
Exactly.
But as far as like understanding, like, I don't know, like cultural significance in certain aspects of it, it's not like you're bound to those criteria.
See, and I agree with you that you're not bound to those criteria, but in my experience, just having really gotten into it in the last couple of years, I've started to notice the things that I thought were me, the things that like made up who I am, both in like my thought process, my disposition, my temperament, the way I deal with people.
Uh-huh.
The more research I've done, the more reading I've done, I've started to notice that and even like heritage going back several hundred years of like these people were generally this way or they thought in these ways. And I'm seeing that in myself. And I don't know if that's maybe like a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts. I don't know. For example, like quick temper.
Sure.
And I've gotten much better over the years because I've worked on that. But I used to have a very, very quick to anger temper. Anyone who knows me probably knows that.
Punch a car.
Yeah, correct. And I see that in that heritage of like a people who were kind of quick to anger, quick to respond.
Sure.
And that had nothing to do with like me searching for that. Just like me reading and seeing some of these same things in that family history, in that like long ranging family history.
Sure. I mean, I could understand certainly, like, seeing yourself in that and
Right.
seeing those kind of qualities.
Sure.
I think it's, but at the same time, I feel like that could almost be kind of like horoscope.
Oh yeah, I don't
Kind of like,
disagree.
oh no, I totally am like that.
Yeah.
Where it's just like you can recognize something within yourself, but if you read every horoscope, oh yeah, no, those all match.
They all match me. Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
But at the same time, like it is, I think, really interesting to kind of acknowledge at the very least those kind of aspects.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say like for me specifically, like I look back at some of my heritage and like it's so vast. Like there's so many different things coming into play.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, yeah, no, I could probably find aspects of all of those things in me 100%. But at the same time, like they're also so different that it is more or less just kind of like random what ended up putting me here. And I think it's also just as much, if probably not more, your life experiences that help shape you and mold you into the person
I think what I'm saying is like, yes, like your life experiences obviously play a huge role in who you are, but the more, and I don't know in terms of your personal experience of like how much you've delved into your, the Waldrop history as it were, but like I'm starting to
doesn't go far.
Okay, well, here's an example. I'm 6'2".
Sure.
Like, which is not super tall, but is taller than average, I guess. And I've noticed that many of the people with my last name, and I also recognize like that's an amalgamation of a bunch of different things.
Right.
But like people that can trace lineage and history and heritage back to, for me, England, Scotland, Ireland, Western Europe,
Right.
like that area. With my particular family name, we tend to be big people.
Right.
Men tend to be 6'2" and above or around there. Bigger, stockier build, that kind of thing.
Right.
And again, not that I was looking for that, but like in passing where, I'm reading a story about so-and-so Johnston, in the Civil War was doing this and like they happened to mention something about his stature. That's interesting. Okay.
Right.
So, that person was almost 200 years ago. Interesting. And then like going back further, reading accounts of like people along the border of Scotland and England, and like they were seen as being bigger people than the other Scots. And it's like, that's interesting too. So what I mean is like, yes, absolutely. You could do that, the horoscopy kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, but like in passing, and that's just one example, but in passing, like interesting. So there are these traits that these people 500 years ago, I see in myself too.
Well, I mean, certainly like, physical aspects.
Right.
Like that's like, like going back and tracing like thoroughbred,
Sure.
breeding and stuff like that.
You call me a thoroughbred? Thanks, man.
You know it.
I appreciate it. Let me sit up a little straighter for you.
those kind of physical attributes, like absolutely, like you have very identifiable traits. But I would be surprised, but I feel like if I were to do the same thing,
Yeah.
because I'm just generic.
I don't think so.
Well, but like just in terms of like.
Oh, well, okay. I don't disagree, but I think like the physical attributes, if you're recognizing that the physical attributes, you can kind of see that, then your DNA and the way you think is all wrapped in that too. I'm not saying that like your life experience, how your life has gone, doesn't play a huge role, because it absolutely does. But like that all kind of goes along with that too.
Right.
So I find, and that's what I'm saying, like I find bits and pieces like that interesting too.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You went to this festival. Like, how did you get, like, I guess more or less acquainted to your heritage?
It really stemmed back to like just wanting to know, honestly, like more about my grandparents. Mm-hmm. So it kind of started there. And
has your heritage always been an important part within your family?
No.
Mine neither.
No.
Like, for whatever reason, it amazes my kids. My oldest daughter specifically, she is like amazed by how little we know. Like we don't really know where the Waldrops came from.
Right.
Like we know absolutely a lot about my wife's side of the family.
Sure.
She's Italian. And so, we can go to the town where her great grandparents immigrated from.
Right.
We know all that stuff. But at the same time, like it really only goes back to like her great grandparents. It's not like a huge, but it's just easier to trace those records.
But I feel like,
suppose.
yeah, no, I definitely see that. But I feel like if you wanted to do more digging in terms of like, where they lived in Italy, you could probably find out a whole lot more too.
For sure.
Back to your original question, like that was never like, I don't really remember having any sort of conversations as a kid ever about like, well, much or past like, where's our family from? We're from Indiana, or
Right.
we're from New England.
Right.
Nothing
Cool.
more than that.
Where before then?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, if I did ask those questions, it was like somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if this was your experience, but I remember in like elementary school, we had to do sort of a family heritage experience. Coat of arms for whatever reason was like a thing.
Right.
And I remember like trying to do some research. Now this was, early 2000s or I guess late 90s at that point.
Dial up.
Right. Trying to do research on like family coat of arms and not really turning up a whole lot.
Right. Page would load, paragraph at a time.
Correct. You'd have a really grainy image.
Right.
I think for me, like the genesis of that was I took a Scottish literature class. Mm-hmm. It's called like Literary Barbarians, and the professor like loved Scottish literature, 18th century Scottish literature, which is really niche, by the way.
No joke.
And through that, somehow we kind of got discussing like Scottish history, and that got me really interested. And then through that, started to kind of figure out a little bit more about this family name.
Like at that point in time, you already kind of knew it was Scottish.
No.
When did you realize it was Scottish?
So that then,
you were Scottish.
That then became from something of like being interested in that history and being interested of like, I think I took an Ancestry.com, like,
Sure.
You do the swab thing.
That's what Lorelei's doing right now.
Yeah, which is super cool because it's general enough that it starts to guide you, but it's not so specific. It's like you came from here.
Right.
But because of like one side of my family being English, Irish, and then like this name coming from this section like of Scotland, that's what got me really interested in it.
Right.
And I recognize, and I think anybody, more to maybe your point from earlier, anyone here in America, we're really an amalgamation of a bunch of things.
Yeah, you're definitely not from America.
Right.
Unless you're Native American.
Unless you're Native American, you're a patchwork quilt of probably a bunch of people.
Sure.
And a bunch of different heritages and a bunch of different cultures, unless like, much like your wife, great-grandparents from Italy, they married Italians from the town over, then married Italians from the town over here in America, which happens.
Right.
But it's that like, how do you then begin to identify and start to piece these puzzle pieces together to figure out, who you are and kind of how you identify with this as well.
And I mean, I would be shocked if anybody's not, honestly. Like, it's just like, no, I just don't care. I just don't care where I come from.
I'm sure
like,
that people are.
I'm sure there's just not an interest, but at the same time, it's like, aren't you just a little bit curious?
Yeah, you don't want to know anything?
Yeah. I mean, I remember I had a grandfather that dug into it really far at one point in time, but at the same time, I don't know whatever came of all of that work, like
Right.
what came of his research, and like that was not dispersed through the family. It was just
Right.
like a hobby that he was into, and I suppose that's on me for not
Maybe.
going to him and asking him for it. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's hard to conceive that somebody would just be like, no, I just don't care.
We're taught in history classes like these big things. If we're thinking like American history, like Revolution and Civil War and these milestones.
Right.
To me, the interesting thing becomes my ancestry against those things, like against those dates. Like, were there Johnstons fighting in the Civil War? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Okay, so do those Johnstons have any connection to my line of Johnstons? And do they have connections to these lines? And okay, so cool, yeah. Does that go back to the Revolutionary War? Okay, well, there were Johnstons in this section of, Virginia and North Carolina, and how are they connected?
Right.
So then you start to see, like, you have connections to these elements of history that maybe were just kind of like dates to you.
Right. It's hard to wrap your head around it, because like it doesn't take many generations back before it turns into like this huge where it's like, just because of how records were kept in America at the time, who knows if that's really accurate.
Yeah.
Like, are you chasing kind of a myth kind of a thing? Like, obviously, like, if you can trace it back to kind of like a bigger zone, bigger area that would have better records at the time. Like, if you watch any of those kind of like celebrity shows where they like trace it back to whatever, they can go back thousands of years. Like, good on them. But I guess that's more or less kind of like, the negative aspect of it is like, it's so hard to trust what you're finding at this point in time.
Oh yeah.
If your family doesn't have, no, this is it. We go back from here, and this was that person's great grandfather, and back and so forth. It almost just kind of feels like it's lost.
Yeah.
Like
No,
you can't grasp it.
and that's such a good point, because I was actually having some conversations with some people this past weekend about that exact thing. Like, for example, and I can speak to Johnston in general, is that the name Johnston and the name Johnson obviously are separated by a letter.
Right.
They're closely related in several different ways. First way being, like, these people originally came to what we now consider the British Isles via France. So, like, those people, how far back, even further does that go? Well, then it becomes even more amorphous. But so then you have, like, pronunciation of the word Johnston with a T. Well, in this area of Scotland is also pronounced Johnson, like Jawnson.
Right.
So then that, if someone says, what is your name? And you pronounce it that way, and it's written down, now you go from Johnston as in like Johnstown, if you will,
right.
to like now Johnson.
Right.
And it was just in that translation. Now there are, I don't know if you've, done anything in terms of like Ellis Island, but there's actually much better record keeping than initially thought. Like, it wasn't just like, what's your name? Right. Not like the Godfather thing of like, oh, your name is this. We don't really know how to spell that. Your name is now, Chet.
Right.
Like, it doesn't work that way. There were translators, there were people from places, and they were trying to get it as close as possible. But there is some of that. Some things are lost.
Right.
Even such like Waldrop. That name, could it be spelled with a V? Voldrip? I don't know. I'm just kind of making that up. But like Waldrip, is it D-R-E-P, D-R-I-P,
I've
D-R-O-P?
gotten letters. I've gotten mail with every possible
Correct.
vowel.
Exactly. And so that's in a modern time when like...
Right. When records are...
Right. Everybody on the internet
decent.
has your social security number.
Right.
Yeah. So, but like, think about lineage even back further than that.
Right.
Like, how did that name change? How did that name evolve? Or hell, when someone's like, you know what? I don't want to be associated with these people anymore.
I don't want to be this anymore.
I'm going to go from, Waldrippy to Waldrip.
Which kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of, you're not bound to it.
Exactly.
Like, you can reach beyond that. You're not, if you look back and your lineage is Germany in the 1940s, hey, you're not bound to that. Like,
right.
You can obviously move out of that.
And that's a really good point in terms of that. And I tell people all the time, like, the whole reason that we're doing this is so that we can discover, so that we can, as of right now, like, identify with what we know, with what we can know, I guess, and then do our best to try to discover that from there. And then I think you make a good point of, then I kind of get to decide, like, do I want to adhere to this, or do I want to say, like, actually, no, these were terrible people. Right. Like, I want nothing to do with them.
Or take pride in the fact that, like, you've changed and you've evolved.
Or
and
that.
that's where you came from. Holy cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Like,
yeah.
Because I can identify that they were assholes, and I'm not.
Exactly. No, and that's a good point.
I strive not to be.
And I guess when you think about the span of history, in order to really write our own, I think we need to understand some of the past.
Absolutely, yeah.
In order for us to really, like, think about, okay, where am I going? Well, I need to understand where I've been.
Right.
And that's not just a personal history, but like, where do I want my family to go?
Right.
How do I, because at this point, like, we're kind of steering this ship.
Right.
So, like, do I want our family to be known as a bunch of assholes?
Right.
Or do I want our family, both immediate and even past, to be known as, like, they were this?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think it'll be interesting too, like, for 5 generations from now,
yeah,
how they would be willing to, or be able to look back and have the access to information that they will have.
Yeah.
Is gonna be like mind blowing,
right?
Just in terms of like their family history. Like, oh no, I can go back and I can see my great grandfather's Facebook page and listen to the podcast that he did.
It's
like, that'll be sick.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, if you could go back and listen, 5 generations, your great grandfather, your great grandfather, and listen to his podcast and like the ideas that he was talking about and things that he was interested in, like, would be crazy cool.
Yeah, obviously, like, there are some people that have that too, just because of, like, my great
I'm a
grandfather, right? Right, or my great grandfather was,
Edison.
Sure. And he kept great notes, and I can, engage with that. But the majority of people don't.
Right.
Man, that's so cool. I didn't even think of that. Now you have Facebook. You probably have Twitter, Instagram, and so watch the shit that you're posting on there, because your great-great-great-grandchild's going to see it and man, that guy's a dick.
Yeah. Don't put all those dirty pics out there, man. Your great-great-grandkids going to see that one day.
So where did you kind of get interested in family heritage, history, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, I've always been just generally interested in history and everything anyway. And it's just kind of more or less out of curiosity, how does my bloodstream, my DNA strand, how did that through time go through these these milestone events?
Right.
Where was my ancestry in those events? How were they kind of shaped by things and stuff like that? It's easy to obviously be stuck in your own head and thinking of this is the center of the universe right here. But it's understanding all the minute little decisions and choices that were made by people you'll never know,
right?
How that affected getting you to where you're sitting right here, right now.
Yeah,
it really is. You give that just a half a second of a thought, and it'll blow your brain apart.
Yeah,
I think of how the decisions that my grandfather made affected me 100% and put me in this spot right now.
Absolutely.
One decision that he made 50 years ago put me where I am right now.
Exactly.
And I wasn't even alive yet.
Yeah. That's so mind-boggling cool.
Yeah. And so, and that's just my grandfather.
Right.
So to think back generations beyond that, wherever that lineage goes, all of those little decisions where it might have just been, hey, do I turn this way or do I go this way down this path? And how just those little minute little butterfly effect decisions put me here. It's never like you could ever completely grasp all of that, but any kind of inkling that you can get into that story is, to me, super interesting.
Well, and that's such an interesting point too of if I've asked my dad what caused my grandfather and grandmother to move down here and down here from Indiana, and my dad kind of tells the story of my dad hated the cold. And he had a friend who was already down in Florida and had some work available, so he packed us all up and we moved. And that story is cool in one perspective because it's okay, makes sense. But I also know there's so much more to that my dad will never know, that I will definitely never know.
Right.
And the same thing of your grandfather made all of these decisions, and you can see those major decisions or those, the fruition of those bigger decisions, but every little choice that he made in order to make these decisions, you'll never know.
Well, and it's and then you think the other side of it, of we're constantly making little decisions that we're just reacting to in the present.
Correct.
That we think are the right choices in now, but those decisions are affecting hundreds and thousands of lives beyond this moment that you don't even think think about.
I just had this deep existential dread just set in, man.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Me picking up my phone is killing somebody in the future. Just that decision. Just
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but I mean,
unfortunate.
You're right. Thinking about your daughters.
Yeah.
You made a decision to come here in Orlando for a college program.
Right.
You met your wife in that college program. Had you not come to Central Florida for that,
they would
not exist.
Yeah.
Or even if your schedule never lined up with your now wife's schedule, and you just even saw her in the restaurant, never worked with her, you might never have gotten up, the gumption to go, hey, you want to go out on a date or something? I hope it's a little more smooth than that, by the way.
That's about it. That's about right.
Hey, you want to go out on a date?
Hey, girl, you looking real pretty.
You got all your teeth. Y'all going?
Damn.
Y'all going on a date?
Yeah.
But if that didn't happen, if those things never happened, they would never have existed.
Yeah. Yeah. I've explained that to some my kids before of I came down here to do that program. It had nothing to do with me deciding where I worked.
Right.
That was somebody else's decision that I'll never know, never meet that person. And it may not have even been their decision. It may have just been a draw it out of a hat kind of a thing of I got put where I got put, and then met my wife and had my two daughters. The decision that person that I'll never know made brought you into this life.
Right.
And they didn't, they have no clue of that.
Clue.
You're just getting through a job. You're just getting through a day.
It's nuts. And that's my point of too, in order to understand who we are, we kind of have to think about that. I'm not talking, 5,000 years of history. I'm even talking about within the last.
You can lose yourself and just an understanding,
exactly
10 years before you were born.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wish we had that on Breath of the Wild, that little function where you can go where it shows you
everywhere you've been,
path of the hero.
Yeah.
And it'll show you your entire time that you've been playing the game, everywhere that you went. And you can retrace every little move and turn and thing that you did, where you died and had to respawn every time. Like, it'll show you all those events. Like, that'd be so cool.
It would be cool.
I'm sure we'll have that. I'm sure Google's probably already doing it.
I was going to say, Elon Musk already, I've got a chip in my arm right now. So he already knows where I am.
Yeah.
Hey, Elon, how's it going, buddy?
That was stuff that I heard somebody say the other day. It was like, what, you need a thing? Well, just ask Jeff Bezos for it. I'm sure one of his devices will hear it and send it to you.
Correct.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong. Hey, man, you got anything else?
No. Glass is empty.
You want to fill it back?
We will in a minute.
Okay. Well, we want to know what you think about the Oban 14 if you've had the pleasure of sipping that dram.
How good was it? Pretty damn good.
We also want to know, what are your thoughts on family heritage, family history, family culture in general? Your history, heritage, culture.
Yeah. Or do you have any cool stories of you look back and found some really cool aspect that you had no clue about?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's very good. Yeah. How far back have you looked into your own history? Do you know anything past your grandparents?
You can get in touch with us through email. That's drepandstone@gmail.com. You also can get in touch with us through social media.
It's always one word, Drep and Stone. Come find us. It's DREP and Stone. Like us, share a thing, comment on a thing. We'd all really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you want to support the podcast, do us a favor. Tell anyone, literally anyone. See that guy over there on the bus stop? Tell him.
Let him know.
See that lady walking her dog? Tell her.
Sure, tell her dog.
I'm sure the dog will appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tell anyone about Drip and Stone. That's probably the biggest way to help out the podcast. You can also financially support the podcast through our Buy Me a Coffee page. It's buymeacoffee.com/dripandstone. Keeps the recording machines working.
Indeed.
And you can support the podcast on the interwebs by literally rating the podcast wherever it is you find Drip and Stone.
Stars, comments.
Thumbs.
Yeah.
All of it.
We appreciate all of it.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. And hey, side note, if you want a sticker, let us know. Because we just actually ordered a bunch of new stickers.
Nice.
Yeah, we did. That was our gift to ourselves from our Pints from Brandon.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, a bunch of new stickers. So if you want a new sticker, we got some.
Let us know.
We'll send one your way. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
May your glass overflow.
And your ass never show. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. You want to look good for the people, Kyle.
Yeah. Think of what you're saying before you say it.
That damn right.
Dumbasses. Sharing the cred.
Right.
You're adorable, sir.
I had the Drip and Stone. People are like, oh, hey, that's really cool. Is that you? Yeah.
That's me.
And they're like, well, you look so different with the glasses on. I'm like,
yeah, totally.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the Clark Kent syndrome.
Is it Oban or Oban? No expense has been spared here. It's not an open bottle. It's an Oban bottle.
Yeah. That glug, 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 glug.
I got you. Okay.
Sorry.
I saw that confusion, and that's why I was like, the
Got there.
Lafroy.
Yeah. Lafroy.
Maybe it's all bullshit. It's probably all bullshit. Potential spam. Not to some people, those motherfuckers.
Yeah. Well, maybe, whatever.
Scottish.
Like Scottish egg.
Scottish shake.
Scottish egg.
You got a nice mouth. Well, I could have kept that, but now I can't. No, that's going to be fun to piece together.
Put that away, man. God. What are your grandparents' names?
Grammy and Pappy.
Yeah. Mama and Papa.
Mama, Papa. Papa. Damn it, Kyle.
I'm sorry.